everybody, I'm BC Begley, and these are your news headlines for January the 30th of 2023. Germany warns against arms race as Ukraine pushes for missiles, jets, and more. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is warning against a race to arm Ukraine with high-powered weapons as Ukraine ramps up its calls for fighter jets and long-range missiles. Scholz engineered a breakthrough with the United States President Joe Biden to send modern tanks to Ukraine earlier this month, but has said fighter jets is a non-starter. Quote, I can only advise against entering into a constant competition to outbid each other when it comes to weapon systems, Scholz said in an interview with German news outlet TASS Spiegel. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky issued pleas over the weekend for long-range missiles and fighter jets as he seeks to strengthen the country's air defense. But Germany has insisted the country will not be equipping Ukraine with warplanes. Quote, the question of combat aircraft does not arise at all, Scholz said, according to Politico. Moscow has painted the provision of tanks as, quote, direct involvement in the war, despite President Biden's insistence that the move is not an offensive threat to Russia. The United States, meanwhile, hasn't shared any plans to send any warplanes. Russia warns the United States the end of nuclear arms control may be near. Russia told the United States on Monday that the last remaining pillar of bilateral nuclear arms control could expire in 2026 without a replacement due to what it said were the United States' efforts to inflict strategic defeat on Moscow in Ukraine. Both Russia and the United States will have vast arsenals of nuclear weapons, which are currently partially limited by the 2011 New START Treaty, which in 2021 was extended until 2026. What comes after February 4th, 2026, however, is unclear though. Washington has indicated it wants to reach a follow-on agreement with Russia. Asked if Moscow could envision there being no nuclear arms control treaty after 2026, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov told the RIA state news agency, quote, this is quite a possible scenario. Ryabkov, Russia's top arms control diplomat, said the United States had in recent years ignored Russia's interest and dismantled most of the architecture of arms control. Quote, New START may well fall victim to this, Ryabkov told RIA. Quote, we are ready for such a scenario. His remarks constitute a warning to Washington that its continued military support for Ukraine could cause the final major post-Cold War bilateral arms control treaty with Russia. The United States has supplied more than $27 billion in security assistance to Ukraine since Russia invaded the country on February the 24th, including over 1,600 Stinger anti-aircraft rocket systems, 8,500 Javelin anti-tank missile systems, and over 1,155mm artillery rounds. Zelensky says Ukraine needs more weapons and faster. Ukraine needs new weapons and faster deliveries to confront a very tough situation of constant attacks by Russian forces in the eastern Donetsk region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Sunday, quote, the situation is very tough. Bakhmut, Volodar, and other sectors in Donetsk region, there are constant Russian attacks. There are constant attempts to break through our defenses, Zelensky said in his nightly video address. Quote, Russia wants the war to drag on and exhaust our forces, so we have to make time our weapon. We have to speed up events, speed up supplies, and open up new weapons options for Ukraine. The General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces said earlier on Sunday that its forces repelled an attack near Blahodante in the eastern part of Donetsk region, while Russia's Wagner private military group said it took control of the village. A later military statement made no mention of Bloedante. Zelensky issued his latest appeal for increased weapon shipments days after Germany and the United States led a list of countries agreeing to supply modern tanks to Ukraine. Vladimir Putin mobilizing 200,000 more troops for a new invasion to topple Ukraine? Russia is mobilizing at least 200,000 soldiers for a massive new assault on Ukraine, NATO's top official has warned. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg grimly said there is, quote, no sign that Russian President Vladimir Putin is preparing for peace. Stoltenberg warned that Russia is preparing for, quote, more war ahead of the conflict's first anniversary at the end of February. It comes amid intelligence reports that Putin may be readying for a massive new offensive, and it has been reported that Putin could launch a new blitzkrieg-style onslaught in an attempt to win the war by taking Kiev, Ukraine's capital. Ukraine fears the assault could coincide with the February 24th first anniversary of Russia's invasion. According to a new Gallup poll, more Americans cite government as the nation's top problem. More Americans named the government as the nation's top problem in Gallup's latest poll, which encompassed the rocky start of the 118th Congress's term. With high prices persisting, inflation remains the second most cited problem, and amid elevated tensions about the southern U.S. border, illegal immigration edged up 3 percentage points. Mentions of the economy in general fell 6 points, the lowest reading in a year. The poll's January 2nd through January 22nd field period included the 4-day 15-vote process in which Republicans, who now hold a slim majority in the U.S. House of Representatives, ultimately elected Kevin McCarthy to be the Speaker of the House. Revelations about classified government documents from 2009 to 2017, which were found in U.S. President Joe Biden's private office and home, also surfaced while the poll was in the field. Although mentions of the government as the nation's top problem rose 6 points this month to 21%, job approval ratings of Biden to 41%, and Congress 21% remained flat. The government ranks as the top problem for both Republicans and Republican-leaning independents, and Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents. Inflation and immigration are each cited by Republicans, while mentions of inflation, the economy in general, and race relations trail the government among Democrats. Democrats are more likely than Republicans to view unifying the country and the environment as top problems. China urges McCarthy not to visit Taiwan. China called on U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy not to visit Taiwan, raising the specter of a repeat of a showdown last year when his predecessor Nancy Pelosi made her own trip to the democratically run island. Quote, "We urge certain individuals in the United States to earnestly abide by the One China principle," Foreign Ministry spokesman Mao Ning told Regular News Briefing on Monday, referring to Beijing's belief that both sides are part of the same country. They should also, quote, "stop doing anything that violates the basic norms in international relations," Mao said. Although Mao stopped short of using McCarthy's name, she was responding to a question about a report last week that the California Republican was planning to visit Taiwan. She didn't say what China would do in response to any such trip. Manhattan prosecutors are set to begin presenting Trump case to the grand jury. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office on Monday will begin presenting evidence to a grand jury about former U.S. President Donald J. Trump's role in paying hush money to a porn star during his 2016 presidential campaign, laying the groundwork for potential criminal charges against the former president in the coming months. This is according to people with knowledge of the matter. The grand jury was recently impaneled and witness testimony will soon begin, a clear sign that the district attorney, Alvin L. Bragg, is nearing a decision about whether to charge former President Trump. On Monday, one of the witnesses was seen with his lawyer entering the building in Lower Manhattan where the grand jury is sitting. The witness, David Pecker, is the former publisher of the National Enquirer, the tabloid that helped broker the deal with the porn star Stormy Daniels. Man accused of torturing woman is still on dating apps, police say. A man accused of kidnapping a woman and torturing her for days before fleeing into a forested area of southwest Oregon has been active on dating apps, either to avoid capture by police or potentially to find more victims, authorities have warned. Benjamin Foster, 36 years old, may have changed his appearance by shaving and dyeing his hair and has taken to apps where he can lure women into helping him escape or becoming his next victim, the Grants Pass Police Department said this weekend as authorities looked for the man. The search for Foster began on Tuesday after police discovered a woman whose name has not been released, bound and severely beaten in her home in what the police chief described as, quote, an evil act. The woman is hospitalized in critical condition, police said on Sunday. How the Supreme Court could soon change free speech on the internet. This year, the United States justice system, including the Supreme Court, will take on cases that will help determine the bounds of free expression on the internet in ways that could force the hand of Elon Musk and other platform owners who determine what messages get distributed widely. The boundaries they will consider include the extent of platforms' responsibility to remove terrorist content and prevent their algorithms from promoting it, whether social media sites can take down messaging on the basis of viewpoint, and whether the government can impose online safety standards that some civil society groups fear could lead to important resources and messages being stifled to avoid legal liability. Quote, the question of free speech is always more complicated than it looks, said David Brody, who is the managing attorney of the Digital Justice Initiative at the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under the law. Quote, there's a freedom to speak freely, but there's also the freedom to be free from harassment, to be free from discrimination. Brody said whenever the parameters of content moderation get tweaked, people need to consider, quote, whose speech gets silenced when that dial gets turned, whose speech gets silenced because they are too fearful to speak out in the new environment that is created. NASA is sending a ship to an asteroid that is worth 70,000 times more than the global economy. NASA has revealed the schedule for a rocket launch that will visit an asteroid that is currently valued at 70,000 times the global economy. The United States Space Agency will launch a SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket holding sensitive scientific equipment in October of 2023 from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. NASA's website says that the rocket will travel for around 3.5 years before it gets to the Psyche asteroid, which is the program named after. It will then spend 21 months observing the massive asteroid, which NASA hopes will allow it to understand more about its structure and history. Okay, everyone, and those are your news headlines for today. As always, all of the links for all of these news stories that I have covered in my video, I will put in the description of the video, so that if you guys want to go and click on them and read them, you can. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. You can always leave a comment. I leave them open. That's what free speech is for. Go ahead and leave a comment. And if you want more news, you can visit my website at bcbegley.com. And I will see everybody for more news headlines tomorrow. Later, guys.